Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining the call today. Today we are going to continue from where we left last week in our discussion on fundamentals of cloud computing. We will be, although we are going to discuss a few new topics, but I'm just going to give a quick recap of where we left yesterday, last week, so that people can have a background. And then from there on, we will talk about the new topics. So carrying on from the last week, one may define cloud computing according to their usage and the purpose. One may use Google Drive or Dropbox and claim that the cloud is used for storage purposes only. Somebody is hosting e-commerce websites such as eBay or Amazon and may claim that the cloud is used for running such applications. Therefore, cloud definitions, they change according to the perspective of end users. A cloud server can be raised from nothing in a matter of a few minutes. And that is in itself a massive benefit offered by cloud computing. Now, everything these days is connected via cloud, whether it's the phones, the servers, the databases, tablets, networks, laptops, and you have the benefit that you can focus upon entirely on your business, and you do not have to worry about your IT department, your network, servers, database corruptions, viruses, security, bugs, and all that. So yeah, I mean, this is just a bit of a background. Now, the today's topic that we are going to discuss will be the attribute of the cloud computing. Not all the attribute, but a few key attributes, the challenges which are posed by the cloud computing in its implementation, and the practical application of cloud computing. These are the attributes of cloud which we will discuss today. Are virtualization, multi-tenancy, network access, scalability, and metering and chargeback. So when a company makes a decision to transfer its IT services to the cloud, it enjoys many benefits such as lower capital cost, lower operating cost, better support for their mobile and remote personnel, and IT flexibility. Virtualization, it is the core of the cloud technology, just like a heart of cloud. Without virtualization of the servers, memory, operating system, and storage devices, there simply cannot be a cloud at all. You create all these resources of servers, memory, operating system, and yet they do not exist for you in the real sense. This is all the virtual world. Virtualization allows one physical computer to run several virtual machines at the same time. If you have installed, for instance, a VMware workstation on your laptop, on that same workstation you can run Windows 10, Linux, Windows XP all at the same time. And therefore virtualization enables a hardware to run multiple operating systems on it. Then there's the concept of multi-tenancy. For example, you have a building and there are 20 flats in that building. You rent those flats to 20 individuals, and thus you create a multi-tenancy environment. Those who rent those flats from you, they have full right over their respective flats. Nobody can enter those flats without their permission. Whatever they do in those flats, no outsider could ever find out, hopefully. Cloud is also a multi-tenant environment, just like the building with the flats, where a single host may have a number of virtual machines on it. The virtual machines can belong to different companies, including yours. Now, consider an example of a cloud service provider offering storage and backup solutions in the cloud. Organizations that access these cloud services are called tenants, and the fact that many such tenants access these common resources give rise to the concept of multi-tenancy. So on a host, there could be several VMs, virtual machines belonging to several individuals and organizations, and the resources are shared between all those individuals and organizations. If the total RAM of a host is, for example, 64 gigabyte, maybe they gave 8 gigabyte to me, 12 gigabyte to Joe, 16 gigabyte to Jane, etc., and kept the rest of for the future allocation. Now, in a multi-tenancy, multiple users are created on a host, and all of them are given the rights. If a host has multiple VMs on it, those VMs cannot communicate with each other as well. You would think that you are the only one who exists on that host and nobody else, but in reality, there could be many more just like you having their own VMs on that host. You will feel extremely safe in a multi-tenancy environment, even within a public cloud environment. Now, there's just one thing, that multi-tenancy is only a public cloud attribute and not a private cloud one, because in private cloud the whole space is yours anyway and nobody else is sharing it with you. So that's why it's a public cloud attribute where the sharing of your host via multiple VMs is doable. Then the next one is the next attribute on the list is network access. That is, no cloud can ever exist without a network. Network facilitates the sharing of resources, the movement of data, and integrated functioning of infrastructure component. The services to be offered over the internet or the private networks are allowed by the network access. And therefore, I mean, if there is no network, there is no cloud as such. And then we have something called scalability. Now, suppose we have a 50 gigabyte today, and tomorrow it is not enough for us. We can increase it in cloud. A daily life example could be a mobile phone which comes with possibly a 64 gigs of memory in default, and in some cases even those 64 gigs of memory is not enough. So can we enhance the memory space of that mobile? The answer is no, we can't. We can possibly insert an additional memory chip, but the internal memory would remain 64 gig, which we can't enhance. So if your mobile is running via cloud, you can probably enhance that 64 to 128 and that 128 to 256 and so on and so forth. So that's the benefit of scalability that comes with the cloud. And the last but not the least on the list is metering and chargeback. So, which means that you only pay what you use. Just like your gas and electricity consumption at your home, you are billed as per your usage, and you pay nothing more and nothing less. Same happens in cloud as well. You only pay for the resources that you use and for the time you use them. Before cloud, if you had a server for your company in your IT environment, you had to run that server on 24/7 basis. You had to have the air conditioners. You had to pay for its maintenance. You had to employ some staff for the operation and maintenance of that server. With cloud, all those expenses have disappeared. Now you don't have to worry about a server. You don't need an air conditioner to keep it cold, and you don't need an O&M staff to maintain it. There's no electricity bill. So you just had to pay for the time you use that cloud. That's it. And your expenses, according to some studies, went down by 90% approximately. So these are the key attributes of the cloud, by the virtue of which you can, the businesses can make can reap the benefits. So now let's have a close look at the challenges that comes with the cloud technology. I've listed a few challenges on this slide, and we are going to discuss these challenges one by one. Like any other technologies, there are some significant obstacles or challenges to overcome in cloud computing too, before it is turned into a mainstream operations in any organization. So most common of these challenges are number one, data security and privacy. Moving to the cloud means loss of control over applications and your data. The third party, in case of a public cloud, takes control, whether which may lead to the security and privacy privacy issues. If I'm sitting in London and my data is in New York, stored in some data center, I cannot have 100% guarantee that there will be no security issues at all. I can't say for sure, with 100% confidence that nobody from the host data center will be able to do anything wrong with my data. There will be no rogue employee. There will be no theft of the data or something like that. Although Amazon, AWS services, Microsoft Azure, they both guarantee that your data is more safe with them than with anybody, than with your own self. It's just like the banks giving you the guarantee that your money is safe with them, rather than you keeping the money at your house and thinking that it's safe. So yes, there is always a level of risk, but compared to the safety guarantees that these cloud service providers extend, and the reputation that they enjoy in the market with the other clients, we can consider our data to be safe with them with a lot of confidence. But then, again, it comes with a caveat that there is always a risk, in life everywhere. So the same goes with your data as well when it goes to the cloud. The next challenge is with regards to the adherence to the regulatory and compliance, to the regulatory and to the regulations and the compliance in a particular geographical location. For instance, we are in somewhere in Europe, and the government says, the regulations and the compliance says that the data of the citizens must be saved. The public data must be saved in the data centers in your own geographical location, in your own country. And I'm just using a hypothetical, example. They say that your data must not go anywhere outside Europe. It must not go to United States or to China or anywhere else. So and if you did not do your due diligence, and you ended up signing a contract with a cloud service provider in United States or in China, and you ended up lending your data, your public data to the data centers in those locations, then you are essentially in breach of those regulations, and you could face penalties and legal consequences. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you are on the right side of your regulations and your compliance requirement, and you do not breach them. It could be other way around as well, that you want to secure your data in in some cloud, and you are looking for the cloud vendors, and there could be somebody, there could be a vendor in China, and they impose a regulation upon you that if you are going to use their cloud, then you must put the data in China, because their regulations the Chinese regulations may say that they cannot build any data centers outside China, especially in your geographical location maybe, and that's why there's no other option for you but to take your data to China. So these are the things that you need to take into account. You need to look into the regulations of the host country as well as the client country, before making these decisions about choosing your cloud vendor. Then there could be an issue related to the vendor lock-in. So it means that, for instance, you migrated all your data to, for example, Microsoft Azure, and at a later stage you realize that Microsoft Azure is too expensive for you, and now you want to migrate your data to maybe Amazon Web Services. But then, when it comes to the point of migration, you realize that you cannot migrate the data that easily. There are issues to migrate between the two cloud vendors. You therefore need to check that the services that you are taking from Azure that service is also available in Amazon Web Services as well. If it is available, then can you migrate the service from Azure to AWS in future or not? The service could be available, but migration could be an issue. And also you need to look at that if there is a policy in place that stops migrating the data from Azure to AWS or vice versa for that particular service. So you must be careful in selecting a particular vendor and be mindful of the vendor lock-in issue that you could face. There should also be a consideration about the SLAs, which you must establish with your vendors, with your cloud vendors, because a robust SLA must be established to avoid too much dependence on the cloud service provider. You must be very clear on how much downtime you have accepted as an SLA, and if the service provider exceeds that downtime, what compensations would they offer you to make up for your loss. Then the next one is your performance and uptime. Now, will your organization perform better in a cloud? Is that something that you have already looked into? Is your service provider providing provisioning any maximum uptime? These issues must be addressed before moving to the cloud. Bad internet, bad output, slow loading of applications, these are some factors that must be taken into account as well. Your company may have a very strong server in place, so there may be no point in moving towards the cloud in the first place. So you may realize that you should only go to the cloud if the performance is expected to be even better than your on-premise solutions. So therefore, it's always good to check with existing customers that how they are performing on the new cloud solution, and whether or not they have benefited by moving from in-premise solution to a public cloud solution. And then we have network connectivity and bandwidth, which could also be a challenge when it comes to the cloud solution. The cloud computing exerts additional pressure on the internet for sure, and therefore the connectivity and the bandwidth requirement must be evaluated based on the services that you are going to use. You could be using some very resource hungry services, and if your bandwidth and your network connectivity is not sufficient, then you may end up having lack of performance. The other issue is with regards to the dependency on the third party. Now, the involvement of a third party into the internal operations of an enterprise may sometimes cause psychological obstacles for the senior managers and the CIOs and the IT managers as well. You are pretty much dependent for everything on a third party in cloud. For storage, you may need the AWS, for instance. You may need the servers for from Microsoft Azure. So somebody in the client organization may have a doubt that the host may have that if the host face any issues, what would be the impact on your organization, and what and how those risks and those issues will be mitigated. So this is something that must be taken into account, that dependency on the third party may cause a lot of anxiety among your colleagues and your senior managers, which needs to be dealt with while making a decision to make a move to the cloud. And then we have challenges along the lines of change and transformations. Cloud migration process must be done through a very well-structured procedure, which I'm going to explain in my next lecture. But for now, just understand that a structured procedure must be in place while making those migrations. With cloud computing, the whole organization in general and the IT staff in particular must be prepared to embrace change in their roles and responsibilities, because they will have to adapt to new ways of working. They will have to possibly upskill their skill sets, their abilities, their competencies as well, to be able to deal with the cloud technologies. And also the employees must realize the benefits that they are going to reap with the cloud technology, so that they actually support that technology. They actually support the organization while the organization make a transition from the in-premise solutions to the cloud solutions. And then we have the challenges along the lines of data interoperability and portability. Now, when the organizations expand with time and their need changes rapidly, we must have we must exercise additional caution to avoid choosing a platform or a technology which creates limitations for you in terms of interoperability and portability. You don't want to be in a position where you migrated on a cloud of a particular vendor, say vendor X, but now you want to build something on vendor Y, and vendor X does not go along very well with vendor Y when it comes to the interoperability. And you are in a situation that you cannot go anywhere. You are stuck with vendor X. The vendor X is giving you some services, but now you want some additional services which this vendor is not giving to you. You want to get those additional services for vendor Y, but X and Y are not going along with each other. So this is a problem for you, and now you decide that, okay, that's fine. If X is not giving me these services, as X is not working well with Y as well, I would rather take all my services to Y, and I'm going to set up everything from the scratch to Y. But then you realize that you are in a vendor locked in state where the portability is also not possible for you, and if possible, it's not that easy for you to transfer your data from X to Y. So these are the key aspects of interoperability, and both portability and interoperability that needs to be taken into account while making a decision about your cloud vendor. And uh, last but not the least are the budget issues. The very nature of the cloud is that it is scalable and delivered on demand. This in turn may cause difficulties while drawing the IT budgets from the organization, because everything has a cost, and although it is established fact that that once you have invested in the cloud, your apex your operational expenses, the OpEx, is quite low as compared to maintaining an in-premise solution. There is it's a kind of a one-time investment with a very low ongoing operational expenses. But then at least there could be a substantial investment in the beginning which the organization has to make, and the senior management must realize that, and there could be for an organization with the limitations in the budget, it could be a problem. So if you think your business without cloud is doing well, and you probably have some budget constraint, you may not want to rock the boat for yourself by moving to cloud. Your expenses will be invariably reduced after cloud migration. However, you may want to consider the initial capex involvement, which may be substantial depending upon your financial situation. So these are the few challenges that which needs to be considered before an organization decides to make a move to the cloud. Now let's talk about some of the practical applications of the cloud technology. One of them is cloud is quite good with the resource-hungry applications. Applications that demand many resources like the CPU, the memory, the storage, or the time that can be hosted on the cloud efficiently. There are high definition internet games out there which people cannot play or enjoy without having some very strong servers and high internet speed, because those games are quite resource hungry. So therefore in such instances the cloud the cloud itself comes quite handy. Then you have benefits of benefits where the applications have spikes in their usages. What it means is that consider an example of a HR system which are accessed by the employees only few times in a year, especially when a financial year is ending and the employees are updating their their performance, what they have achieved throughout the year, whether they have met their goals, whether they have met their objective that they have agreed with the organizations and their line managers. So there's a bit of a rush in the end of the year when everybody is logging on to a system, to the HR system, and putting all the updates in. But then once that time has passed throughout the year, the usage of that system is not that high. So there was a spike once a year, and then for the rest of the year there's no more spike. In a situation like that, cloud solutions would come quite handy because they would enhance the resources for that application during that time of the year, and then once that the time has passed, they will reduce the the resources. Another example could be that you may have some applications which are accessed by only 1,000 people, 1,000 customers. Tomorrow they are accessed by 10,000 customers, and the next week they could be accessed by 50,000 customers, and next month they are again accessed by only possibly 1,000 customers. So there are spikes going on and off on your system. If you had your in-premise solution, then it may be very difficult for you because you have to have a very large number of resources to support that spikes. And when those spikes are not there, when the usage is not those high, those resources are just sitting idle and doing nothing. So that's where cloud comes quite handy. Because of its scalability and because of its auto scanning features, it keeps a track of your usage and modify the resources allocated for you according to your requirements. And then there's a benefit of special server configurations. So for instance, you require a server which is not even available in the market, in the open market. So in situations like these, the cloud, where you have some very specific configuration requirements, like some specifics about the operating system, the RAM and the storage, etc. In cloud, the cloud would come quite handy. They would provide those special services and special configurations to you for whatever time you need them. And once you are done with that, you can they can be decommissioned by the cloud, and you can let them go. So for an on-premise solution, obviously it would be quite difficult for you to first of all source those resources for yourself, and then even if you locate them somewhere, it would be very difficult, and it would be very expensive. It may be very very expensive to procure them, and then once you have used them, then nobody's going to buy that from you, maybe. So that's why cloud would come quite handy in situations like these as well. And last but not the least, you have something called backup and recovery as a benefit. This is the most common application of cloud, as it is quite expensive to manage an entire duplicate infrastructure. What it means is that usually, when an organization decides to invest on its IT environment, just like setting up the data centers, buying the putting the equipment in that, the servers and the air conditioners and the applications on those servers, etc. From the disasters planning perspective, it is quite prudent for those organizations to have a replica of the entire infrastructure somewhere else on a different geographical location because if a disaster strikes to their data center, for instance, there could be a flood, there could be an earthquake, there could be fire, then they don't want their business to be impacted because of those incidents. So they would like to maintain a replica of their system, and that require additional investment. They are not maintaining only their main system, but they are also maintaining a replica of that system, which could be extremely expensive for them to do. So that's where cloud comes quite handy. The cloud service provider says to you that, look, you don't have to worry about the disasters and the floods and all those things. It's our problem. You just take the services from us, and then we will make sure that your data is safe. Worrying about the disasters and floods and the fires and the earthquake, you don't worry about that. We will look after all that for you. So these are a few of the practical applications of the cloud for you.